And we're live. We're live.
Okay, thanks. Good morning, everybody. Eric Fitzpatrick with the Office of Legislative Counsel, here for the conference committee meeting between the House and Senate members on H534 and actually waiting to retail theft. There's a proposal from the House conferees that I will walk the conference committee members through shortly. It's a fairly straightforward, but also takes a approach that is slightly different, but incorporates, I think, parts of both previous approaches. You may recall that the House approach had, and this is to the situation involving multiple retail thefts, had approached it with an aggregate value kind of angle, which is that when there's more than one offense within 14 days in a certain geographic region, then the amount of property stolen could be aggregated and added together, whereas the Senate approach was more of a, let's take it from a perspective of multiple offenses. So an increased graded penalty system based on whether it was the first, second, third, etc. So in order to respond to, I think, the House concern of the multiple offense when it was a very small amount of property, this creates, you'll see this sort of middle tier of retail theft offenses. So, right now there's two tiers. Tiers below 900 and above 900. Below 900 misdemeanor, above 900 felony. And it's that way with a variety of property crimes, not just retail theft. This takes a different approach that's specific to retail theft. I think recognizes that it's shoplifting, it proposes its own issues. And this sort of middle tier is between 250 and 900, okay? So the below 250 would actually, the penalty would actually decrease slightly. So if it's that, and that's on the top of page 2, it would go from 6 months to 30 days, which I think had been also part of the Senate proposal for a first offense. But then for the middle tier, this 250 to 900, it could be a misdemeanor or a felony depending on what number offense it was, right? So if you see first offense, this is again between 250 bucks, $500 6-month misdemeanor, which is the existing penalty for the misdemeanor, right? Second offense, this is subdivision 2, it bumps up, still misdemeanor, but now it becomes a 2-year misdemeanor. Third offense, then it becomes a 3-year felony. Fourth or subsequent offense, 10-year felony. So that was the Senate approach of what the penalties would be associated with the increased number of offenses. But it takes the House approach of preserving a lower threshold for the very small, very lower amount of value. $250 is the sort of number that this proposes, although that's obviously.
Ben, is Dick on the screen?
Yeah, I'm sorry, I forgot. Jeez, I've had so many technical difficulties this morning. I forgot to turn my screen on.
Do you have this proposal in front of you?
I do.
Okay, we're just completing a walkthrough with Eric.
Yeah, no, I've heard it. Thank you.
Okay.
Actually, and I'm done. I just realized the one last point I forgot to mention is that subsequent offense has to happen within 2 years of the previous one. So, for example, the second offense has to be within 2 years of the first, third within 2 years of the second, etc. So if it were to happen more than 2 years out, then it wouldn't get that increased penalty.
Well, I have to say I like that a lot, that it really seems to be targeting the people who we've been hearing about, who are committing the crimes again and again in a very small window of time. So.
Well, the only thing go ahead. I'm sorry, Phil.
Oh,
Go
that's
ahead.
okay. Eric, is that the size of it?
Yep, I think so. Yep.
Dick?
I'm just concerned about lowering the penalty for shoplifting under 250. We know most of it's diverted and etc. So people usually don't get jail time for it anyway. But lowering the penalty may send a bad signal to the public.
So if I could jump in, first, I just want to say that overall, I believe that this is a compromise that accomplishes much of what the House Judiciary was attempting to do, which is address the burden that Vermont retailers are facing. And doing away with the aggregated format that the House bill had, I feel like what we have here with taking the Senate's version and adding the escalating penalties for offenses that occur within a certain amount of time, again, it essentially captures the knot of what we were hoping to do. And I did notice that, Senator, when we were talking about it and looking over when I was looking this over this morning, that first offense, which is the top of page 2, we essentially lowered the penalty for a basic retail theft offense, with the, I believe, idea being that under the Senate's version, every subsequent offense would be escalating. So it was sort of lessened the first, but then increased. And we did sort of decouple that initial offense, which is now the first tier, from the rest. So I certainly would not have concerns about, in the case of the top on page 2, section A, given that is the basic tier penalty for misdemeanor theft, I would not have an issue with changing the language back to what it is in existing statute, which is that 930 days, so that we are in effect addressing increased consequences for multiple offenses, but not lessening that first offense. I would be fine with that.
Okay. Okay. I guess maybe we should talk amongst ourselves at some point before we agree to everything.
Absolutely.
And so for me, I was going to share, so I appreciate this, because I think what we're trying to do is target the folks that are doing the repeat offenses and doing the significant thefts. And I guess for me, so the piece that I have hesitation about is the 2-year period. And like, is that condensed enough that we're really catching the folks that are continuing to do it in the short period of time? Like for me, I was looking at potentially having it be a lower time. So I'm just, if we're looking at places we still want to compromise or consider, I'll just put that one out for the table as well. Because our original one was within 14 days. So we've gone now to 2 years.
And I will say, Eric and I had a conversation about this, which was, we were trying to find a time frame that worked. And we originally thought of a 2-year period to extend, but Eric in a conversation had a very good point, which is it was counterintuitive, was the word he used, and he's using much more polite words than I probably would have used in those circumstances, to say someone has their first offense, and if they have a year later, or a year and a half later, that second offense, it factors in, but let's say it's a year and a day later, it starts over again. Even if they have that, like a middle offense that's just a week earlier, because we were trying to do a set block of time.
Yeah.
So it made more sense to go from offense to offense, which is in effect potentially infinite if someone is committing the offense within the time frame. So I do think that, at least as far as the House version went, if we were to shorten that time in between offenses, it might be more in tune with what we were originally envisioning. And if we said, let's say 6 months, for example, someone would just have to avoid that second offense for that time period in order to not be in the loop. So that's something to consider.
Yeah, I have to say, when I read it, I liked the 2-year period. I thought it made sense. It is your proposal, so if you want to change it, you can do that. Overall, I think this is a great proposal. I think, as Senator Sear said, we should talk about it, but this incorporates a lot of what we sort of half agreed on yesterday, and it doesn't seem like there's anything that's not going to be discussable. I will say that I also like the idea that we're personally, that there's the 30 days now instead of the 6 months, because we are balancing between a recognition that there's an epidemic going on. People are stealing to feed their habits. So I think if we did make a move in that direction, that's compassionate. And then we're increasing the penalties if you aggregate past that. So, Bob, anything you want to add before we?
I'm good right now.
Yeah,
Yeah.
no, you can go to the senator first.
Dick, just wondering if you have anything you want to add before I'm thinking we can,
Well-
break, maybe ask our, colleagues to leave, and then we'll have 15 minutes to talk amongst ourselves.
That sounds great.
Okay.
Yeah, another piece, I was talking to, Tim Legis-Dumont this morning. He said with the original version that came out of the House, passage on, I'm drawing a blank on the terminology.
The effective date?
Yeah, the effective date. He would like to go out to July 1st, and the reason being is with the new, language, new drafts that we have, he's gonna have a lot of coding to do. He's gonna have to train his state's attorney, so if we could go to the July 1st, it would certainly be helpful to him. Otherwise, he's not gonna be able to get it done in time.
Yeah, and I think that makes sense, and that will also still include much of the summer season.
Okay.
Okay, well, thanks so much.
All right.
And,
All right.
if we need another meeting, we'll be in touch. Otherwise, I'll just be in touch.